In today's show, the Blazers get a clutch win in Milwaukee, beating Giannis and Dame down the stretch to win on the road. Welcome to Locked On Blazers. Let's get into it.
You are Locked On Trailblazers, your daily Portland Trailblazers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
What up, world? As your past first point guard and Trailblazers reporter, Mike Richmond, you are listening to another episode of Locked On Blazers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, available wherever you get podcasts and also on YouTube. Thanks for making this show your first listen, coming at you each and every weekday, Monday through Friday. So make it a part of your daily routine. Make it your first listen. Tell your friends to do the same. It's Locked On Blazers, your team every day. In today's show, I want to talk about the Blazers' win over the Bucks, a 105-102 win that came down to the final seconds, and the Blazers held on for an impressive clutch win over old friend Damian Lillard and the Milwaukee Bucks. We'll get into that game. We'll get into what they did down the stretch. I think crunch time was an interesting approach to kind of maybe some things we've on this particular program have complained about the Blazers offense, and then the way that it just changed a little tweak that made it look a little more effective, or in the very least created one basket that mattered. We'll talk about all about that game, do our fastest recap in the West, and then I want to share a conversation I had with Scoot Henderson. I'm not going to play the audio, but I'm going to talk about Scoot's progress over the last handful of games, and one thing that I have been watching that he disagreed with when I brought it up with him. We will do that to close the show. Join us in the third segment. First, we're going to get through some other basketball talk, including our fastest recap in the West. Let's do what we do. Blazers go into Milwaukee and win 105-102 on a game-winning basket from Anfernee Simons with 20 seconds left. They get a couple stops down the stretch, and they hold on to win an impressive one. This game was close throughout. Neither team led by double digits. Blazers up 31-28 after one. They're up down 31-28 after one, but they come back in the second quarter. They go into halftime up 3, 54-51, and like, this is a game. It didn't feel like the Blazers were playing way out of their minds in the first half, but this is the talent league. You assume that talent's going to show up, and you knew the Blazers were going to have to hold on, and hold on they did. 11 points from Anfernee Simons in the third quarter. The Blazers lead by as many as 9 in the period, but the Bucks come all the way back and take a 76-75 lead into the fourth quarter. It's going to be decided in the final quarter. Fun basketball game, right? Like, this is just a fun basketball game. It's going to be decided down the stretch. The Bucks are okay. The Bucks probably should have celebrated when they won the in-season tournament. They didn't celebrate. They chose not to celebrate. And Doc Rivers said it's because Darvin Ham told him that the Lakers, when Darvin Ham was coaching the Lakers last year, they celebrated that tournament win in Vegas, and maybe they got like so drunk that they were bad for a month. I don't think that's the exact implication, but I think it was like it took the focus away from the regular season, which just keeps rolling. The Bucks are now 3-5 since winning the in-season tournament. It doesn't matter if you drink a beer or not after the game. You can drink those branded beers from the NBA after the game. You may or may not play poorly. Obviously, the Bucks post in-season tournament, Damian, Giannis have both missed time, but like, come on. This team isn't touching the heights that many thought they probably could. They're a little bit old. They're missing some perimeter defenders, but they still have two very, very good players. Giannis Antetokounmpo is like on the short list of best players in the world, and Damian Lillard, while he is not at his absolute peak from a few seasons ago, is still pretty freaking good. He was not particularly good in this game, and you're in a 1-point game heading into the fourth quarter against your former team. In the Damian Lillard era, all of Damian Lillard and Milwaukee era, they've played 3 times. Blazers are now 2-1, and the third one, the Blazers had a big double-digit lead. The Bucks had to come back and win the game in Milwaukee last year. All of these games seem to be close, whether this is like the Blazers getting up to play Dame or the Bucks not being a serious franchise. Choose your own adventure here, but this one comes down the stretch. The Blazers briefly have 4 and 5 point leads in the fourth quarter, but never really pull away. And the Bucks come back and take the lead with under 5 minutes to go. And all of a sudden, flash forward, here we are, under a minute left. Giannis Antetokounmpo driving in semi-transition, gets bumped by DeAndre Ayton. They call a foul. They go to the monitor on Chauncey Billups' challenge. The call's upheld. I think it was the right call. I understand, I guess, why Billups challenged it. It was pretty soft foul, like live particularly was pretty soft foul, but like, That's the rule. DeAndre Ayton jumped from what they call A to B in the sort of ref parlance. He jumped forward into Giannis. It's a pretty weak call. I think if they don't call it, no one would be surprised except for Giannis and maybe Doc Rivers. But I think they got it right. But during that timeout, the Blazers get to draw up a play. Giannis hits both free throws. We are tied with 32.8 seconds left, and the Blazers are going to get the ball. You get the ball with 30 seconds left in a tie game. You can't, that's the 2-for-1, right? Like the Bucks have achieved their 2-for-1. So you don't want to milk clock necessarily, but you don't want to go super duper fast, but the Blazers have something called out of the timeouts because they had a whole timeout during the challenge to draw something up. And they run a play. I'll talk about this a bunch in the second segment. They run a play, and Anfernee Simons probably cuts the action off early because he sees an advantage. He drives right by AJ Green, gets to his left hand, a scooping layup on the left-hand side as Bobby Portis comes over to help. Foul and one. Blazers go up by one. So Giannis hits 2 crucial free throws to give the Bucks the lead. Every time he comes back and says, "No, you don't." Blazers go back in front. It's a 1-point game, so you kind of know that it's going to be a Giannis and Dame pick and roll, except they don't run a Giannis and Dame pick and roll. They just kind of let Dame attack. Giannis is somewhere along the baseline. Maybe they were getting into something, but Toumani Camara does a really good job sticking with Dame. Dame gets into the paint and tries to fling one out to Bobby Portis in the corner, but Bobby Portis is exiting the corner. He's getting out of that space as opposed to spotting up, and Dame just throws the ball out of bounds. I don't think Toumani locked up Dame, but he played good enough defense that passing the ball was the move. Toumani and Denny were very useful in this game. Bucks turn it over. They have to foul. Anfernee Simons hits 2 free throws. It's now a 3-point game. You know who's going to get it. Letter O. Damian Lillard tries to draw a foul. My man has always been a foul grifter, but in that situation, you need to shoot the shot for it to go in. He tries to draw a foul, kind of semi-flops on a very soft Anfernee Simons contest, misses a 3. He could hit it and flop. He's been doing it for years, but immediately post buzzer tries to go talk to Zach Zarba about why you didn't call a foul because there wasn't one, dog, and the Blazers win 105-102. That's your fastest recap in the West. The Ant play down the stretch to go from down 2 to up 1 is a big one. These are really, these being close games, these are really decided in sort of coin flip marginal plays. Or plays in the margins, not marginal plays in the margins. And Anfernee Simons making a tough left-handed layup after, and Damian Lillard turning the ball over. When you get into clutch minutes, you're reducing the game down to 4 possessions or something. 4 possessions are pretty random, but all of the work you do to get into those 4 possessions is really important. And the Blazers put themselves in a position to have a chance. And then Anfernee Simons delivered. Damian Lillard didn't. Blazers win. Heck of a game. Anfernee Simons, 11 points in the third quarter, 12 in the fourth. He finishes with a team high 28. I think a couple things. The Blazers are now 12-22. If their over/under was set at something in the range of 21, I think they're flirting with the over pretty clearly right now. Obviously, they're gonna. I would imagine there'll be some very serious post All-Star break shenanigans from this team, but they're probably a little bit. They've probably won more games than most folks would have guessed at this point. I have trouble when they win a game and they play well saying they shouldn't win. I think that is, it strikes me as a weird way to talk about basketball. It's when the game starts, Each team is trying to win the game. The players on the court are trying to win the game. The folks that are maybe not trying to win the game are the front office. You make those decisions by like taking, players off the floor. And again, we got a DNP CD from Rob Williams, but Donovan Clingan played. No Jeremy Grant in this one, who continues to miss the game with a face contusion after getting hit in the jaw. Blazers aren't calling it a concussion, so I'm going to assume it's not a concussion. But boy, is that a serious bruise to your face to miss as many games and miss as much time. Now a week that Jeremy Grant has missed. He's been out for a week with a bruised chin. Obviously, like, it looked terrible when it happened, but he stayed in that game, and now he's going to miss a week. I am not exactly tinfoil hatting that, but I will say this. I will file this under being conservative with injuries as opposed to like major conspiracy stuff. And I think they're just committing to Donovan Clingan over Rob Williams as the backup center. You could also argue this tinfoil hat thing about, as we're a month out from the trade deadline, that's the reason Rob isn't playing. And I will say, you're not right, but you're not wrong. I think both of those things are true. But in general, like, my point here is that when the game starts, and particularly when you get down the stretch, I just am not going to criticize a team for winning. Like, I understand that they're winning too much crowd. And I will say a game like this where they beat a team, the Bucks, get serious 17-16 Milwaukee Bucks. Like, you're deeply mediocre with one of the best players in the world. Bummer. But I do think the way the Blazers approach this game is not my maybe ideal way to go about it. I don't think the winning is necessarily wrong. It's like the process you chase down a win strikes me as not even incorrect, but like a notable approach. Let's talk about that approach. Let's talk about how Anfernee Simons scored, because like, outside of criticisms, I thought the Blazers did something in that final possession to get Ann a bucket that was incredibly important, that I hope we see more of in the future. I thought Denny Avdia played well. I thought Tumani Kamara played well. And I thought DeAndre Ayton had a really good game where he didn't score a lot of points, and I think that was meaningful. We'll talk about all of that in the second segment. Join me there, won't ya? First, though, I want to tell you about Prize Picks. It's daily fantasy made easy. Basketball season is heating up, and there's no better way to get real money action while you're watching your favorite NBA teams than Prize Picks. Whether you're a diehard fan or you just love some friendly competition, Prize Picks makes it fun and easy to turn your basketball knowledge into cash. Here's how it works. You pick more or less on at least two players for a shot to win up to 1,000 times your money. Think LeBron's going to drop 30 points, or maybe Anfernee Simons is going to score 25 plus and add another 4 assists? Well, Prize Picks lets you make your predictions and put your money where your mouth is in just 60 seconds. I've played Prize Picks over the years. It's very easy to make your selections. They've even got things like Taco Tuesday, where they give you some free picks to make your entry have an even better chance to win. Plus, when you win your money, you get safe and fast withdrawals. You can get your cash as quickly as 15 seconds. It's a fun way to add a little bit of excitement if you are watching a game. And now's the perfect time to join. Download the app today and use the code LOCKEDONNBA to get $50 instantly when you play your first $5 lineup. That's right. You don't even need to win to get the bonus. It's guaranteed. Prize Picks. Run your game. All right, let's talk about the end of this game. Blazers 105-102, a nice win, and you win the game because Anfernee Simons makes a tough left-handed layup with 20-some seconds left, 23 and a half seconds left, according to my notes, and force turnover, get the victory. But the how is really important to me. Down the stretch of this game, like Ant had 23 of his 28 after halftime. Another game where he's kind of a quiet first half. Like, where's Anfernee Simons? 11 in the third quarter, 12 in the fourth quarter. But most of the fourth quarter, or at least a chunk of the fourth quarter, the Blazers were kind of they were matchup hunting Damian Lillard. Welcome to the other side, Blazer fans. In crunch time of a fourth quarter game, you, Blazer fans, got to watch your team try to get Damian Lillard on the ball in a pick and roll switch so that they could pick on him. Welcome to the other side. Except it didn't really work. So they were having, Dame was guarding Shaedon Sharpe, and they were having Shaedon Sharpe come up and set a screen and trying to get AJ Green, who's a pretty good defender. I don't think he's like, I don't think he's an exceptional defender, but I do think he's good. He's just like a floppy-haired white guy, so maybe people don't think of him as like that's the Bucks' best perimeter defender. But I think he is. He's certainly better than Gary Trent in that regard, and I think he's probably better than Andre Jackson because Andre Jackson's gets a little out of isn't as disciplined. He can get a little out of pocket trying to get too aggressive. Although he's a really good athlete, but like AJ Green's not a bad defender, not an all-world defender, but he's the Bucks' best option to guard Anfernee Simons. So like they're trying to get him off him, right? They're trying to get him off him. Saying okay, get out of here. And they're trying to get Dame on a switch, and it's just not very fruitful. It just hasn't produced that much quality offense. They've gotten it. I think Shaedon Sharpe's kind of quiet in this game, but he had 2 big buckets in the fourth quarter, like midway through the fourth quarter, a little mid-range runner, and then when the Blazers tried to get the ball inside looked inside to DeAndre Ayton enough to scare the Bucks to send multiple defenders towards him. Skip pass from Tumani across court to Shaedon Sharpe, hit a big 3 and put the Blazers up 4, but the Bucks eventually came back and even briefly took the lead for about 8 seconds. But for the most part, that sort of matchup hunting, which is definitely coming from the bench. That's not an Anfernee Simons call. That's coming from the bench. That's like, that's some of it is maybe Chauncey not calling a specific play, but he's saying like, yeah, go. Like you can hunt him, go get him. And sometimes you'll see, it's harder to see it on TV because you can't see both. We can see it if you're in the arena. Is that Chauncey will say, go point, whistle and like say, yeah, chase down this matchup. It just wasn't working. It wasn't producing a bunch of fruitful buckets and the 3 or 4 possessions they tried it. I believe they scored on one of them, but it was for the most part, it was like a hard jumper, late clock for Shaedon Sharpe, another jumper from, it's like you're kind of, because Sharpe isn't this like mean screener and because you're only involving 2 guys in an action and you're very specifically chasing something that the Bucks know you're chasing, it doesn't make it like super easy to guard, obviously. But Anfernee Simons isn't the kind of like apex predator that can be like, give me Damian Lillard and like go to work, right? He can hunt a switch and go to work, but that's not like maybe his elite skill, particularly when when the function is like have Shaedon Sharpe be the guy who comes and sets the screen. It wasn't working. I think the idea of it is fine, but it wasn't working. And when something doesn't work, you got to go away from it. So again, they have this. There's 30 seconds left, and Giannis is on the line in a tie game, hits 2 free throws to give the Blazers a lead, and they get to draw something up during that timeout. They have a stoppage, and they draw something up, and they very clearly draw something up. Anfernee Simons comes down. You need a bucket. Some way, somehow. And the play starts. And I believe there's going to be a bunch more action. It might have just run into the little dribble handoff series and ended up with Anfernee Simons on an empty side pick and roll type of thing with DeAndre Ayton or whatever it might have been. But they send 2 down screens in the corner. So there's guys that are deep in the corner, and they send DeAndre Ayton down on one side, like on a deep down screen to get Deni Avdija to come up from the corner, and then they send Tumani for a down screen to get Shaedon Sharpe coming up from the corner. So that's all 4 off-ball players are now engaged in action. And Anfernee Simons, as DA goes to set that screen, he turns his back to set a screen for Deni Avdija. Bobby Portis looks, because that's the man he's defending, right? You have to pay attention when there's off-ball action. As soon as Ant sees that off-ball action, instead of waiting for a screen or a 2-man game or whatever it is, he just blows past AJ Green and gets a left-handed layup. He actually had one earlier in the quarter, but he'd missed the layup out of that 2-man game. This time he makes it, and the foul, Portis is maybe a half step late because he was engaged. This is what we want to see from the Blazers offense. This was off-ball action, but action away from the ball that drew the backside defense and engaged them and allowed them to get easier stuff. I feel like that is the element that is often missing from the Blazers' actions. It's like 2 dudes stand in the corner while a high pick and roll happens, and the weak side defenders are not engaged. The weak side defenders get engaged. The strong side defenders, all off-ball defenders get engaged. And Anfernee Simons, who's your best one-on-one scorer on the court, gets himself into the lane and gets a bucket. And he still had to make a hard shot and all those things, but like it was helped by that action. I think that was a big one. And it just like speaks to sort of the Blazers' process wasn't great. And then when they were able to sit down and draw something up, they got exactly what they wanted. And I don't think the play was, hey, we're going to distract so you can go. It was that because there was distractions, Anfernee Simons was able to make a read. He made the right read and scored. I think there was a lot more to the actions that was about to come up, but like Ant went early because he saw he had an opportunity, and he had the opportunity because of the play design. I thought DeAndre Ayton was really good in this game, and I think it's important that DeAndre Ayton was really good in a game where he scored 10 points. 10 points, 13 boards for DA. But like usually when DeAndre Ayton has a good game, he's like 11 of 12 for 24 points with 15 boards. And it's like, well, yeah. Yeah, he made every shot he took. Like, dude has really good touch. He got to his spots. He scored. Like, but this was a game where I thought like DA only took 9 shots. He scored 10 points. This was a relatively quiet game for him, but I thought he was really engaged defensively. There was a play in the fourth quarter in which he double-teamed Giannis Antetokounmpo on one side of the floor. It skipped to Green in the corner, and he closed out hard to AJ Green. Now, Green, he hit 7 threes in this game, and that was a pretty open one. That could have been number 8, but just the fact that Ayton went from a off-ball double-team helping position sprinting to the other side to prevent the jump shot. It's like he was just really engaged. I thought this was a really good defensive game from DeAndre Ayton in terms of like effort, energy, physicality. The Blazers won this game because they kept the Bucks off the free throw line. That's the reason they won the game. On the year, Giannis Antetokounmpo averages 11 free throw attempts per game. Dude lives at the line. Tonight, the Bucks took 9. That's the game. Giannis took 4 free throws. They didn't give up easy points. That's how you overcome a night where you make about the same number of three-pointers, the same number, in fact. Bucks hit 13, Blazers hit 13. Blazers turned the ball over 18 times compared to just 11 for the Bucks. That's your possession battle, right? But the shooting possessions matter, and the Bucks did not go to the free throw line. They took just 9 free throws. On the season, the Bucks are about middle of the pack. They average 21.5 free throw attempts per game, but Giannis averages 11, Dame averages 7, right? Like those two dudes get to the free throw line. Nobody else does. Dame took 5, Giannis took 4. So Dame slightly below average. He averages about 1 more trip, and Giannis just 4, and he averages 11. That's why they won the game. And DA was a big part of that. Challenging without fouling. And then I thought the forwards were a big part of that. The Blazers are sort of able to guard Giannis with 2 players. Now, no one's really going to guard him, right? Like, he had 31 and 11. It's not like they locked him up. Dame did not have a good game. He finished with just 16 points on 5 of 15 shooting. Early flurry from Dame, but I thought he was bad in this game overall. And at the end of the game, a turnover and a missed 3 in the final 30 seconds. But Tumani, allowing Tumani to guard Dame, allowing Denny to guard Giannis, and then being able to switch that 2-man action to feel relatively comfortable with it. Just like even Chris Murray in his minutes was okay because it's just like another big physical wing. But I thought both those guys were good. Tumani had another good offensive night with 15. Denny Avdija had 19 and 14 boards. He was really good, except for he had 7 turnovers. He's had 2 of his last 3 games kind of had big turnover games, but that's why it's like not a full-time point guard. For those of you ringing the bell, full-time point guard, he's just a little too loose with the ball. But Denny was good in this game outside of the turnovers. He just turned the ball over 7 times. And the Blazers were able to win this game because of that physicality. Okay, I teased this at the beginning and then I didn't touch on it, so I'm gonna touch on it here very quickly. The Blazers only played 8 guys. I don't love that process. Let's talk process and Scoot Henderson and his process in the final segment. I apologize that I teased something I didn't get to. I'm going to get to it after the break. Join me on the other side. First, though, let's talk about FanDuel, America's #1 sports book and an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. The NFL playoffs are here. From big upsets to game-winning drives, the postseason's going to be fun with FanDuel because right now new customers can bet $5 and get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. That's $200 in bonus bets, win or lose. The FanDuel app gives you everything you need for live bets, same-game parlays, and so much more. So whatever you're looking for, if you want to watch the games and bet live, if you want to cook up the most elaborate NFL postseason parlay imaginable, betting on every game this weekend, you're going to find all of it. So just visit FanDuel.com to join today and get started with $200 in bonus bets. That's FanDuel.com. Make this playoff season unforgettable with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Still a pass first point guard. I'm still Mike Richmond, and you are still listening to Locked On Blazers. So I mentioned the process. I didn't love the process for the Blazers. Here's why I don't love it. Denny Avdija played 42.5 minutes. Anfernee Simons played 41 minutes. They played 8 dudes. I don't need the Blazers to play Delano Banton. That's not what I see as the future of the franchise to unlock them. I would say in general, Many of you, dear listeners, are much higher on Rayan Rupert's potential than I am. I'm not sure I see it with him, but many of you do. I just don't. Like Jabari Walker didn't play; he never plays. Rob Williams, a healthy scratch, DNP-CD. That did not play. Coach's decision. But 8 guys with 42.5 minutes of Deni Avdija, 41 minutes of Anfernee Simons. Is this really the plan? Yeah, it is the plan. Is this really the good process? Is this really the point? Is this like, I think there has to be a balance between, like I said, I'm not the type of person that watches these games happen and says like they need to lose. I understand that impulse, but that's not how I am. When the game starts and they're playing in the close fourth quarter, the thing that my brain thinks is how can they do things to win the game? And that's why I spent a lot of time like thinking about that, the way the Blazers ran that final play for Anfernee Simons. What are the ways that a basketball team can help it help itself accomplish the point of basketball, which is to win basketball games, albeit the NBA does incentivize losing pretty obviously. But I think like if you're going to complain about the Blazers winning, it's like, why are they playing 8 dudes in a game in January on the road against the Milwaukee Bucks? Why not expand this a little bit more? Scoot Henderson played 24 minutes, right? Like he's one of the 8s, but like, isn't there a way, if you're going to do this, that even Scoot could play 30 minutes? Like, I think that's my complaint, is that like an 8-man rotation with super high minutes for Simons and Deni Avdija is just like, that's how you win the basketball game. Deni was helpful. Anfernee Simons was awesome in the second half. You lose the game if you maybe take those dudes off the court for extended periods of time. So I get it. I'm not confused about the why. I just think the how. The process needs to be like, I don't even needs to be. I think it would make more sense if the Blazers process was like, we're going to play at least 9 every night and we're going to get X number of minutes for all these dudes. And the 10th guy or the 9th guy is maybe going to be Rayan Rupert or Delano Banton, and we'll get some sort of instructional minutes. Those minutes might suck, and the coaching staff doesn't want to play minutes where dudes are bad. I get it. But I just think if you're complaining about the Blazers process, I think complaining about the result misses the point of what this was, which too many minutes and too tight of a rotation for a team whose ultimate goal is not to win basketball games in January on the road. Although like winning for like the sort of general mental health of the actors involved, of the folks who actually play the basketball game, is important. But like, I think the short rotation is not my favorite. Okay. I want to talk about Scoot Henderson. Over the last 6 games, Scoot Henderson is averaging 13 points, 3.7 boards, 0.3 assists to go along with just 2.5 turnovers. So a 2-to-1 ratio, finally getting there. 2.2 steals. He's shooting 47% from the floor, 39% from 3, and 75% from the stripe. And he is the only Blazers regular over the last 6 games to have a neutral plus minus. The Blazers, and I think plus minus even over a 6-game sample is not ideal, but it does suggest this. The Blazers are mostly losing their minutes, and all the regulars that play have been losing their minutes. And Scoot Henderson is the only regular that has played over these 6 games that the Blazers haven't lost his minutes. He's playing pretty okay. Now, am I going to sit here and tell you that 13, 4, and 6 is the mark of an excellent NBA player? I am not interested in that. 13, 4, and 6 is a darn good backup point guard. And Scoot Henderson has looked like a darn good backup point guard. But when you consider where he had started and where he looked at points in this season to put together a 6-game stretch where he looks completely competent and you can see the signs of a good playmaker with some other stuff, with the obvious warts still in there. There's some bad turnovers. In the fourth quarter, he came out with about 8 minutes left and didn't come back. Just before he came out, he just straight up lost the ball and at the top of the key. He just his handle was loose and he lost at the top of the key. There are some challenges for Scoot, right? And I'm not trying to say he's actually the greatest, although that does make for more quality YouTube content. I'm sure you can find it. Scoot Henderson is figuring it out. And then figuring it out is all capital letters. That's how the algorithm works. The Blazers have a star coming off the bench. That's a pretty good YouTube headline too. You can use that one as well. I'm not trying to sell you on that. What I'm trying to sell you is that Scoot has looked a little bit better. And so one of the things I have been doing when I've been in the arena recently is charting in my notebook how often the Blazers are calling plays intended for Scoot to initiate. And so that's, since I started doing this game against Denver on December 19th, there's been 4 home games. So I'm not going to bore you with like all of my numbers that I've written down, but I will say this. I have noticed that they have made particularly when he's in the game with Anfernee Simons, they've made a concerted effort to have Scoot be the initiator of sets, even if the sets are not designed for Scoot to be the person to take the shot. Obviously, he's a natural passer, so it makes sense that they aren't like, Scoot, go get a bucket type of sets. And so I asked Scoot about this, and I said, to me, it looks like, and this was a conversation a couple games ago, I asked Scoot after the game, it's like, it seems like they've been really intentional about getting you in structured offense. And do you feel like that's helped you? And Scoot Henderson said the exact opposite. He said, I feel better when there's less structure. And I thought that was fascinating. Scoot Henderson told me that, like, the thing that I have been viewing, that I'm like, okay, they're giving Scoot a bunch of structure. They're like clearly calling, okay, what's going to set those two screens up high, those horn sets, which is like guys on the elbow, on either side of the elbow of the lane, but like they usually extend it up in the NBA. So it's like, so Scoot can pick a side to go to and run a set. It's like they've been much more intentional about getting Scoot stuff to run, to execute. And Scoot basically said, I feel better when it's free. I feel better when the reins are off. And I thought that was fascinating. Not because I think Scoot is right and the coaching staff is wrong. In fact, I imagine that the middle is the real truth, is that like Scoot does need structure, because without structure, he can get a little chaotic, or he can do the thing that I think is even worse, which is defer. Like, give the ball to Anfernee Simons and run to the corner because you're not playing with structure, and now it's just a hunt the matchup game, and Scoot is not the person who's going to be involved in the hunt. So, like, I do think offering him structure has been helpful. That's why I started charting it. I think it's important that the coaching staff also probably sees it that way, or sees to some extent that they need to get Scoot a little more stuff for him, a little more calls. But Scoot feeling like he wants the reins off, that he wants to play free, and that he can call the plays he wants, and he can react and play in speed. Because he says when there are structured plays, he feels like he plays too slow and too deliberate, and then he wants to he feels like he gets caught in trying to get the thing accomplished, get the play accomplished, as opposed to just kind of like react play. And he mentioned, like, his job as a point guard is to recognize what the deal is. If they're on a 9-2 run, it's like, let's keep getting a quality shot. Like, we're playing really well, let's stay in it. And when they maybe are struggling a little bit, it's like, okay, let's be aggressive because we kind of need to change the momentum. Or the reverse, it's like, we're really struggling, let's make sure we get let's make sure Shaedon Sharpe gets a shot he wants. And it's like, he told me, it's like some of that he has learned the feel of the NBA. Something he did not have a season ago is that he feels much more comfortable in is that feel. It's not the feel of of necessarily his opponents and all of those things, but it's the feel of when his team, when his group needs a certain thing, how they need to attack, what has been working, what hasn't been working, who's got it going, what is kind of the rhythm of how they should approach each game. And I thought that was a fascinating conversation with Scoot Henderson. And finally, I asked him what players do you like to watch in the league? And the 2 names he mentioned are Donovan Mitchell and Jaylen Brown. And he mentioned that the things he likes about them are that they play with really good balance, that Donovan Mitchell uses his speed really well, but stays on balance. So it's like a burst to get into jumpers, but he keeps his feet under him. And he mentioned Jaylen Brown. He's like, I really like his game. He's bigger than me, but I try to model a lot of his game. Some of it is Brown uses his size, his frame, and just to like make sure that he gets where he wants to go without like crazy overpowering athleticism, like in terms of straight line burst, but just like he's an athlete and he uses his balance to be athletic. Scoot with better balance is a better basketball player. I think that was a pretty interesting insight into kind of what he's into as a basketball player. He also said that his favorite player to watch was him, which caused one reporter, me, to roll his eyes. But eventually he gave me Donovan Mitchell and Jaylen Brown. I don't think Scoot is necessarily wrong. I don't think the coaching staff is wrong, but I do think that offers you an interesting push and pull into young guard trying to figure it out, who's been playing better recently, and coaching staff trying to figure it out, who has gotten better production out of their young point guard recently. I think Scoot needs some structure, but I also think the Blazers would be, if they were to totally put the reins on him, they would not be getting the best out of Scoot, although there are times when he plays a little bit out of control. And even in the games I'm mentioning, the last 6 games, I thought he had a stinker against Philly. Like, I thought he was straight up not good in that game. But he's had some money nights. Like even against Milwaukee, he finished with 9.7 boards and 3 assists. This wasn't a particularly impressive game box score wise, but I thought it was mostly a good scoot night, mostly a good decision making night. I thought he made passes that weren't completed as buckets that are just like, that's a good pass. Lamar Hurd called Scoot one of the best simple pass makers in the league, which is a funny compliment, but I don't know about best simple pass makers in the league, but the best version of Scoot makes simple plays. He just says, I know this is the right read. He just, like I mentioned in a previous show, it's like switching sides of the court on a fast break. Hey, I'm going to hit it ahead and switch sides of the court. Just swinging it, making a simple read to the corner when the guy helps. Like the best Scoot is not flashy passing. The best Scoot is simple passing. So I agree with I don't maybe agree with the superlative that Lamar Hurd shared on the broadcast, but I do agree in general with the comments. Okay, one final thing as this show runs a little bit long, but whatever, it's a Monday show. You're listening to January 6th program coming out on Sunday a little bit early as I record this on Sunday afternoon. The game was available on YouTube TV. I mentioned that the January 1st was not the magical date, that things were going to change over from where the Blazers were suddenly available on the Blazer games, and the Rip City Television Network were suddenly available on the streamers. And when I reached out to someone with the Blazers, they told me that, that they were in negotiation, but Sinclair that's the broadcasting network that provides the Rip City Television Network, that Sinclair Broadcasting was going to have to negotiate with YouTube TV and Hulu. I have YouTube TV. The game was available on my YouTube TV. I will say that this appears to be a bit ahead of schedule what the Blazers organization had anticipated, which is awesome news. But someone I spoke to, a different person I spoke to, somewhat cryptically when I asked if the games were going to be on YouTube, was like, we'll see. And then the Blazers, and they seemed skeptical based on their cryptic responses about how quickly that would happen. And then the Blazers had a public-facing on their website, a public-facing comment that said, we will get this straightened out by next season. That isn't a promise of later this week. So the Blazers, this is probably ahead of schedule. And what I'll say for you, dear viewer, is if you are a YouTube TV subscriber, that is great stinking news. All right. That is going to do it for today's show. Tell your friends about the program. Tell them they can get it wherever they get podcasts and also on YouTube, and then come back for tomorrow's show. Blazers play 3 games this week as they continue their road trip, and we will have you covered for all of it. I appreciate you listening. I'll talk to you soon.